So let's talk about Lee. So this is the point when I'm giving talks in the South that people start going, you know, they go, Okay, I got all that, but are you going to go after Robert E. Lee? Sir, are you going to go after Robert E. Lee? Well, buckle in, ladies and gentlemen, because here we go. Treason. Oh, yeah. Treason. Article 3, Section 3, I already mentioned that. Many of his family members did not go with the United States, did not go with the Confederacy. Most of them didn't. His sister never talked to him again. When his daughter found out that he was going to do this and talk to them, she said that his word was, "I think you'll be surprised by my decision." Treason. There were 8 U.S. Army colonels from Virginia in 1861. 8. 7 remained loyal to the United States. All West Point graduates. 8 chose 8. 7 remained loyal, and 1 and only 1 chose treason. And I'm not saying that somehow that this is a presentist argument I'm saying about treason. It's what they said at the time. It's what all the United States Army officers said. Why choose treason? It's what George Thomas, the great Virginian, said. It's what Winfield Scott, the great Virginian, said. All of them said, you're throwing away this for treason. And by the way, he couldn't even wait. He couldn't even wait the 3 days it took to process his resignation before he accepted a commission with Virginia. So he was actually being paid twice for several days, being paid by both sides. So treason is that he chose to fight against his country. And remember, he killed U.S. Army soldiers. No other enemy general in our history has been responsible for the deaths of more U.S. Army soldiers than Robert E. Lee. As somebody who served in my country, in my uniform for 36 years, who has friends buried that were killed in combat, the cadets that I taught, buried in the West Point Cemetery, Section 36, the idea that I would honor someone who chose treason to preserve slavery, but who killed U.S. Army soldiers, no, those are not my heroes. So treason. Why did he choose treason? To preserve slavery. In 1857, his father-in-law dies, and he gets 2 years of paid administrative leave to go back to Virginia, to leave his regiment in Texas, go to Virginia and run Arlington. 2.5 years, paid by the government. Winfield Scott allows him to do this. During that time, he becomes a planter, a slaver. And his father-in-law recognized enslaved marriages. He didn't, broke them apart. His father-in-law refused to use the whip hand. Lee whipped enslaved people. Every time he had a chance to choose between human decency and profit, he chose profit. He kept them enslaved for as long as he possibly could. And then during the war, as his army went north into Antietam in the Gettysburg campaign, his army, every part of his army, kidnapped free black people and brought them back to Virginia for sale. And then his army refused to accept black prisoners of war and slaughtered them on sight, to include their officers. After the war, he gives a brief to Congress. He is there, goes to Congress in 1866, and says, he says, he's asked, what should you think we should do with the freedmen, with the recently freed people, the black people of the South? Well, he says, I can tell you what we should do in Virginia. If it was up to me, I would kick every black person out of the state of Virginia. And at no time, he sends out a manifesto in 1868 with Alexander Stephens, the guy who wrote this famous Cornerstone speech, saying that we're fighting for Negro slavery. And he sends that out saying that the black people of the South are meant only for a laboring class. They should never have political power. Whatever you do, don't do that. So he meant to the end of his days, never apologizing for that. However, if I would say what's his finest hour? His finest hour is in 1866, I think, when he submits a pardon, acknowledging acknowledging treason and saying that he would support emancipation. It's not signed. It's not signed because Andrew Johnson refuses to sign it. But he is given a general amnesty. So pardon is for one person, amnesty is for a bunch. He's given that general amnesty in 1868. So he has provided amnesty for treason. So, yeah, so does he see, the thing about monuments is commemoration is about our values. It's not history. Commemoration is about our values. At West Point, every year, Lee's going to win the Battle of Chancellorsville. Guaranteed every time. Hooker's going to lose. Lee's going to win. That's the history. But commemoration is about who your society values. And at least for me, these aren't the values that I think of for the United States of America. So I've been doing this, and again, Sherry would sort of help me get that. I grew up in a culture that lied. I grew up in a culture based on lies, this lost cause myth. Sherry is incapable of lying. So she's been working on me for these many years. So I was invited back to Lee Chapel to give a talk on Constitution Day a month after the white supremacist violence in Charlottesville. And man, I was nervous in the service. And I ended up talking and saying that Lee was a traitor for slavery